Have you ever thought about what's hidden deep inside a dark cave? What if a fun adventure suddenly became a struggle to stay alive? This is a story about a group of adventurers who went to Church Cave in California, ready for an exciting trip through its huge underground tunnels. But they weren't expecting the very wet conditions caused by rain. As freezing water poured down, one of the cavers found himself stuck in complete darkness, hanging from a rope, fighting extreme tiredness, broken equipment, and the loud noise of a powerful waterfall. Would he be able to escape the cave's freezing hold, or would he be trapped forever inside? Stay with us as we tell this scary story of courage, teamwork, and survival. Welcome to an exciting journey into the mysterious depths of Church Cave, one of California's most fascinating underground wonders. Located in the Windy Gulch area, this cave is part of a larger, intricate network of tunnels and caverns that stretch beneath the surface. It is a place of incredible natural beauty, rich history, and hidden secrets, making it a dream destination for explorers and cave enthusiasts alike. Church Cave stands out as one of California's largest and most decorated caves. Over the years, explorers have surveyed up to 3.45 miles of passages within the cave, but much of it remains unexplored. Hidden chambers, tight openings, and mysterious tunnels still beckon to adventurers willing to chart the unknown. This cave is a reminder that even in the modern age, there are still places on Earth waiting to be fully understood. Access to Church Cave is limited to protect its delicate features and the wildlife that calls it home. Trips into the cave require special permits, and only pre-approved parties led by authorized leaders are allowed inside. Gates at the entrances help preserve this unique environment, keeping it safe for future generations. The Windy Gulch area, where Church Cave is located, is home to many other caves, including Boyden Cave and Saturday Cave. Together, these caves form a complex system that scientists and explorers are still trying to understand. The interconnectedness of these caves and the unique geological features that they offer make this region a true treasure. Church Cave is more than just a geological wonder, though. It is also a vital habitat for wildlife. Several species of bats, including the Townsend's big-ear bat, spotted bat, and pallid bat, use these caves for hibernation and breeding. Other fascinating creatures like cave-dwelling salamanders, spiders, and pack rats can also be found here. These caves are not just a place of mystery for humans, but also a critical home for many rare and sensitive species. In this video, we're going to explore the beauty and secrets of Church Cave. From its majestic chambers to its narrow, twisting passageways, we're going to take you on a journey through one of California's most extraordinary natural wonders. On October 30th, 1982, a group of 5 experienced cavers embarked on an ambitious exploration of Church Cave in Kings Canyon National Park in California. This cave is notorious for its challenging passages and towering drops, making it a favorite among seasoned adventurers. The group planned a through trip. That's a journey entering the cave from one entrance and then exiting through another. However, what was meant to be an exciting exploration turned into a test of endurance, teamwork, and survival. The team consisted of 5 friends in their 20s and 30s, each with years of caving experience. Among them was Don DeLucia, a 25-year-old known for his adventurous spirit and resilience. The group had been planning this trip for weeks, carefully mapping out their route through the cave's daunting features. Their journey would take them through the 120-foot drop, the tremendous crevice chimney, another 60-foot descent, a detour into the Pearl Palace, and then finally through crawls leading to the stream entrance. Even though they had experience, the group had a big problem. They didn't have wetsuits, which are very important for going through parts of caves that are wet or flooded. Some of them wore Petzl suits, which gave them a little protection, but these suits weren't made for being in the water for a long time. But nevertheless, they were so excited about the trip that they didn't worry too much. The rain from the day and night before had stopped, and the sun was shining when they got to the root entrance, and they were very eager to get started. The descent into the cave was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. The first big challenge they faced was the 120-foot drop, a towering vertical descent that was usually dry. But after the heavy rain the night before, a freezing waterfall now poured down, drenching the group. The icy water made their ropes slippery and their movements slow. The roar of the falling water filled the air, making it hard to hear one another. Still, their excitement pushed them forward, and they couldn't wait to see what lay ahead in the mysterious depths of Church Cave. Their next challenge was the tremendous crevice chimney, a narrow, twisting passage lined with slippery rock. Every step was dangerous, and a single misstep could lead to a fall. The tight space felt suffocating, and the cold air chilled them to the bone. Yet, despite the dangers, the group's spirits remained high. They encouraged one another with nervous laughter, their adrenaline masking the growing sense of unease. Then they arrived at the 60-foot drop, and it was here that things took a darker turn. To check the safety of the descent, one of the cavers threw a rock into the darkness down below. Instead of a dry thud, they heard a soft splash. Water. One of the team decided to rappel down and see just how bad it was. The descent was tense, with everyone above watching anxiously. When they reached the bottom, the caver shouted to the group up above that the water was up to their waists. The pool of water was cold and still, and it reflected the light from their headlamps like a dark, shiny mirror. They realized that the rain had caused some parts of the cave to flood, and they were not ready for this. Yet, even though it was becoming more dangerous, the group nevertheless decided to continue. They really wanted to finish the route that they had planned because they were proud and also excited to explore. But as they got ready to move on, they also felt even more uneasy. They had entered a place where nature, with all of its strength and unpredictable ways, was completely in charge. Well, as the group went down into the water-filled chamber, they began to realize how serious their situation was. The water, which had only been at lower levels before, now suggested that they might have to swim, something they weren't prepared to do. They decided that the risk was too big, and as a result they made the difficult choice to turn back. Going back would mean climbing up the 60-foot drop again, going through the tremendous crevice, and then finally climbing the 120-foot waterfall, which was now flowing with even more water than before. The group carefully climbed back up the 60-foot pitch and then squeezed through the tremendous crevice, making slow but steady progress. They were cold, they were wet, they were tired, but the thought of reaching safety kept them moving. Then, they reached their final and most difficult obstacle, the 120-foot drop. The rushing water pouring down the vertical shaft was now stronger than before, making the ascent treacherous. One by one, the team climbed the rope, battling the freezing water that drenched them and made every movement harder. When the fourth caver reached the top, only Don DeLucia was left at the bottom. Don was exhausted from the earlier climbs, and the relentless spray of cold water was sapping his strength. Still, he grabbed the rope and he began his ascent, determined to join his friends. When he was only 15 feet above the ground, something terrible happened. Don's helmet, which was held on by a broken chin strap, came off of his head and fell to the ground. His headlamp fell with it, leaving him almost completely in the dark. He couldn't see anything. And without his helmet, he wasn't protected from the water and small rocks falling on him. Don had no choice but to climb back down to get it. Soaking wet and shivering, Don put his helmet back on and he started climbing again. But his equipment wasn't cooperating. His foot ascender, also known as a Gibbs, a crucial piece of gear that helped him climb the rope, was malfunctioning. Each attempt to secure the rope failed, forcing him to rely on his raw strength. His arms burned, his legs ached, and the icy water pounding down on him felt like it was draining his energy with every passing second. The roar of the waterfall was deafening, drowning out the shouts of his teammates up above. He was alone, struggling in a dark, narrow shaft with no clear way out. The cave, once an exciting place to explore, now felt like it was closing in on him. The cold, wet air made it even harder to breathe, and every muscle in his body screamed for rest. Don's grip on the rope began to weaken, and the thought of being trapped there was terrifying. Up above him, his teammates realized that Don was in trouble. But with the sound of the waterfall echoing throughout the cave, they could barely communicate. All they could do was watch and hope that he had the strength to climb. Or come up with a plan to save him. The situation had become a desperate race against time, with Don's energy rapidly running out. Seeing that Don was in real danger, one of his teammates decided to climb part of the way back down to see how he was doing. When he got to him, things were worse than they had thought. Don was shaking very hard, his face was pale, and his hands were trembling. He looked like he had no energy left at all, and he could barely stand up straight. His equipment wasn't working right, and the heavy waterfall made it almost impossible for him to climb. The group knew that they had to act quickly. They decided to set up a hauling system to pull Don up the remaining 100 feet. But they didn't have a mechanical advantage, which meant that they would have to rely only on their own strength to haul him up. It would be a grueling effort, but it was their only chance to save him. The rescue began. Don, despite being exhausted, tried to help by climbing as much as he could. His hands were raw and blistered from gripping the wet rope, and his muscles ached with every move. He was gasping for air, fighting through the cold and pain. Above him, his teammates were pulling with all their might. The narrow passage that they were in felt like it was closing in, and the spray of the freezing water was relentless. Every inch they gained felt like a small victory, but the effort was painfully slow. For Don, the ordeal was like a nightmare. The darkness surrounded him, and the roaring sound of the waterfall made him feel completely isolated. The cold seeped into his bones, making every movement harder. His body screamed for rest, but he refused to give up. He could hear his teammates shouting encouragement whenever the noise of the water allowed, their voices like tiny sparks of hope cutting through the chaos. The team above worked in perfect coordination, pulling the rope inch by inch while encouraging Don to hold on. Their hands were blistered, their arms shaking from the effort, but they didn't stop. They knew that Don's life depended on them. The tension in the air was almost unbearable, every second feeling like an eternity. After what seemed like a very long time, Don finally reached the top and was pulled to safety by his teammates, who were exhausted but also very happy. The group quickly hugged each other, feeling a wave of relief because they knew that the most dangerous part was now over. Even though Don was very tired and shaken up, he was able to leave the cave without any more problems. When they came out into the sunlight at the root entrance, the team thought about what they had just gone through. This experience had pushed them to their limits and showed them how important it is to be prepared, to communicate well, and to trust each other. Even though their adventure didn't go as they had planned, it was a strong reminder that caves can be unpredictable, and that people can be very strong and resilient. The group's harrowing experience in Church Cave was a powerful reminder of just how dangerous cave exploration can become when things don't go as planned. They were not fully prepared for the unexpected conditions caused by the bad weather. Heavy rain had changed the cave environment, making it colder, wetter, and more challenging to navigate. Unfortunately, they didn't have the right gear, such as warmer clothing or enough vertical equipment to deal with these new dangers. This lack of preparation turned their adventure into a near disaster. Thinking about what happened, the group understood that their decision to keep going on the trip instead of turning back sooner was a bad choice. They had believed what park rangers had told them, that there hadn't been much rain near Church Cave. But the conditions inside the cave showed something different. Because they had wasted time sharing equipment, and because the environment was so difficult, they had become at risk of getting dangerously cold and extremely tired, ultimately possibly resulting in hypothermia. To prevent incidents like this in the future, cavers can follow these important safety tips. Number 1, prepare for the worst. Always bring gear for unexpected conditions, such as extra warm clothing, wetsuits, and waterproof equipment. Even if the weather seems fine, underground conditions can change quickly. Number 2, have independent gear. Each team member should have their own climbing and safety equipment. Sharing gear can cause dangerous delays and emergencies. Number 3, monitor the weather closely. Check weather forecasts before and during the trip. Heavy rain, even far from the cave, can lead to flooding and other hazards underground. Number 4, be ready to turn back. Know when to stop. If conditions worsen or the team isn't fully equipped, it is far safer to turn back than to push forward. And number 5, communicate and plan. Make sure that everyone on the team knows the route, potential risks, and emergency procedures. Good planning and communication can save lives. This group's story is a lesson in caution and preparation. While exploring caves is both thrilling and rewarding, it requires respect for the unpredictable power of nature. With proper planning and the right equipment, adventures like this can remain exciting and safe.
It was a cool, dry night in Arizona when a group of college freshmen ventured into Pepper Sauce Cave to explore a pristine pond deep below ground. On the way down, one woman tried to squeeze through a small hole when her leg got stuck. Terrified, she flailed and screamed as her friends started to panic. Will she make it out alive? This is the story of the Pepper Sauce Cave rescue. The Desert Cave. Pepper Sauce Cave is a few miles outside of the small town of Oracle near Mount Lemmon in Arizona. It's a desert out here, and the cave's surface is covered with dirt and clay that masks the limestone underneath. Pepper sauce has fascinated researchers since 1948. Because of Arizona's desert climate, Pepper Sauce Cave is warm year-round with an average temperature of 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Moisture from the cave's underground lake keeps the interior humid as hell. Pepper Sauce is only around 100 feet from the road and has an easily accessible entrance. That's enough to lure hikers and thrill seekers deeper below. Eventually, the entry passage opens into the big room with a vertical drop of about 15 feet. To make research easier, teams installed a metal ladder that descends into the main room of the cave. Nestled below this ledge lies the lake room that has a cave lake that shines brilliant greens and blues in the light. It's this room with its fantastic lake that attracts so many people to Pepper Sauce. Because of its accessible entrance, warm temperatures, and gorgeous lake, Pepper Sauce attracts over 20,000 visitors every year. Without the ladder for safety, Pepper Sauce could have claimed many more accidents and even deaths. At the other end of the lake room, cave researchers installed a second ladder that ascended to a small tunnel called the birthing canal, or the rabbit hole. This passage isn't called the birth canal just because it's narrow. This section is also muddy and slick, and cavers have to climb down this narrow passage head first. A group of a few friends made a weekend trip to Pepper Sauce Cave for fun back in 2009. They easily trekked through the first few sections of the cave, as they walked past creepy, loose string that snaked around the rocks left behind by fellow novices to mark the way out. Notches in the wall away from the lake wafted smells of urine and poop from drunk partiers. Experienced cavers look ahead to map their moves out ahead of time. They get a full picture of the maneuvers and then break it down into smaller movements. That way, there's less chance for surprise and danger. This group didn't even think about the consequences of performing advanced cave maneuvers like the birthing canal. The daring girl at the front of the group, who we'll call Sarah, climbed the ladder out of the lake room. At the top of the ledge, she shook her hands to her side, hyping herself up to numb her fears. Without a second thought, she laid down on the slick limestone surface and started to crawl. With considerable effort, she got through the passage. At the other side, she waited for her friends, reassuring them it was easy. The second feature of the cave is fun for most people, cavers or not. Dubbed the slide, this next passage descends further at an angle. This hole is larger than the birthing canal, so most people can go down it, but it's also even more slick. Centuries of water has changed the speleoforms, or rock formations, of the cave. The slide is smooth with a bumpy or uneven surface, so its angle forces people to literally slide down. An expert might use their arms and legs to slowly descend, but this group wanted the thrill of zipping down in a cave with only their phone flashlights to guide them. One wrong move, and that's a broken phone and no light. The speed of the fall could easily break ankles or smack the back of their heads on the ground, disorienting them, knocking them unconscious, or even cracking open their skulls to soak the stone with their blood. The bottom of the slide opens a few feet above ground in the next room, so cavers have to land on their feet with forward momentum. Explorers with no knowledge of the cave probably won't see the lip from above. They could easily fall forward or backward and land on their spine, paralyzing them as their life hangs in the balance deep below the Arizona desert. All of them made it down the slide, with only a few scrapes from exposed skin from badly prepared clothing choices. By now, they were all covered in mud. It got onto their hands, making it hard to grip the already slippery rocks that lay ahead. The next room was what they came here for. The signing room. Half a century of people staking their claim overlapped along the walls with signatures, affirmations that they had conquered pepper sauce. But this tradition was also an act of destruction. Teens and college students, like this group, have been wrecking the cave with graffiti and destructive practices. Vandals used markers and spray paint to draw vulgar phrases and pictures along the walls. Over time, these chemicals have seeped into the groundwater, tainting the once clear lake. Researchers have found E. coli bacteria and bacteria from human waste in the cave's once beautiful lake. Litter has also disrupted the cave's ecosystem. In recent years, more respectful cavers have started leaving notebooks with pens behind to carry on the tradition of the signing room without damaging the cave. Plus, caving teams have spent thousands of dollars sandblasting away graffiti to return the cave to its natural state. Disrespecting caves can be costly for the taxpayers. But these teams were about to learn that if you play games with caves, you will lose. Pushing their luck. The signing room is the last stop for almost all of Pepper Sauce Cave's 20,000 plus visitors. By this point, they've had their fun and have struggled through the dark, rocky expanses of the cave enough to turn around. But this room also opens into a labyrinth of passages that extend further down into the cave. Experienced cavers have mapped over a mile of subterranean passageways in Pepper Sauce that could easily trap groups like this one. Crouching in the low-hanging ceilings of the signing room, the group was still excited by the thrill of the adventure. They signed their names, started chatting about which path to take, and debated if they should head back. The lead caver, Sarah, picked a narrow route, and the rest of the group hesitantly agreed. They watched her enter the narrow passage and begin to press deeper into Pepper Sauce Cave. Large rocks jutted out from the sides of the rough passage, forcing them to bend and press their bodies against the jagged walls around them. One by one, they each started to follow her. Their lights couldn't reach to the end of the passage, and each member could barely see over the backs of the people in front of them as they crawled through the mud and stone. One girl in the middle of the group started to have some doubts, and she suggests that they turn back. Sarah didn't respond. She was so focused and intense that all she thought about was the next arm movement, the next leg movement, again and again until she saw something ahead. Panting with sweat that mixed with clay and streaked down her face, she turned around in what little space they had and said the next room was just up ahead. They could rest there for a minute and head back. There were problems she didn't mention. The ceiling up ahead curved down while a jagged stone blocked the left side. Immediately past this squeeze, the ground dipped once more, like the birthing canal. It was just as damp here, so the squeeze should be easy. But as she pushed forward, something went wrong. She squeezed forward and felt resistance. Her pants were snagging on the edge of the rock. As she paused, trying to conquer the problem, her group exchanged worried glances from front to back. One of their voices spoke up, reminding her that if it's that challenging, then the return trip might be even harder. Maybe it's best not to push it. The voice had a reassuring, yet shaky tone, concerned but fearful of how Sarah might react if she realized how bad her situation really was. As the words left the mouth of Sarah's friend, she managed to smooth out her pants and jostle her way forward a few more inches, but now she was stuck. She tugged on her leg, it wouldn't budge. She pulled harder, but the rock's edge gripped her clothing and dug into her thigh. With the overhead bulging rock twisting her spine into a weird angle she couldn't reposition. They asked if she was all right. She let out a fake laugh, trying to remain calm while she struggled for breath in the humid and stagnant air of Pepper Sauce Cave. She asked if they could help her out. The friend behind her started pulling on her leg. The pain immediately caused Sarah to yell for them to stop. Instead, they tried adjusting the fabric again. No luck. Next, they tried wiggling the rock free, but it was heavy and they couldn't get any leverage. Plus, gravity was pulling the rock toward the downward slope ahead, and only the ceiling kept it in place. A male in the group suggested that the party switch places. They agreed and slowly crawled backwards out of this section and back into the signing room. On some days, the popularity of the cave would cause some groups to run into each other here, but this group wouldn't be so lucky. They switched places and began the slow crawl back to her. By the time they got there, Sarah's foot was starting to go numb. Her friend asked if he could pull harder. She agreed to try it, but she would signal to stop if it was too painful. He pulled and twisted his upper body for some small amount of leverage. She wasn't budging. He asked for the others behind him to form a chain. Each of them would grab the ankles of the person in front, and they would pull in unison while Sarah kicked backwards to get some momentum. The maneuver failed. The girl who wanted to turn back earlier broke composure and told them she was starting to really freak out. To make matters worse, the ground and their hands were all wet. Now that should have worked in their favor, but it just made it harder to grip Sarah's shoes and ankles as the young man was pulling. They told Sarah they were going to get help. Sarah had protested a rescue earlier, fearing the embarrassment and blow to her pride. This small glimmer of hope was all that stood between her fun day out with her friends and the grim reality that her fate may rest here in this narrow passage without sunlight, suffering as starvation drained her life away. She agreed. They all started to exit when she jerked, trying to turn around. The pain jolted through her as she pleaded for one of them to stay behind. One of them agreed, but they would wait in the signing room so they could be out of the way when rescuers arrived. They said when, still trying to keep a veil between Sarah and the reality of the situation, but they actually meant if the rescuers arrive. Sarah's friends sat with their back against the wall, not knowing what to do. They weren't cavers. They weren't prepared for this life and death struggle. They went numb and blank, staring down at the pooled water and muddy stone on the floor of the signing room. The words on the wall blurred together in their peripheral vision. They didn't really even notice, but Sarah continued to struggle. As she pulled, pushed, and kicked, her muscles kept swelling with blood and lactic acid, which weakened her and drained her chances even more. With eyes wide and full of terror, Sarah realized she needed to conserve her light. She turned off her light as her own heartbeat rose to meet the infinite darkness ahead. As she sat petrified, another thought started to creep in. Since Arizona is dry and doesn't get much rain, the Pepper Sauce Cave Lake usually stays at the same level all year round. But when rain does come through, it can be devastating. The dry dirt of the topsoil above presents no challenge for oncoming rain. The water flows quickly through the ground, and the loose dirt turns to lightweight mud that turns to thick streams below ground. At times, the water level of Pepper Sauce can rise so high that it starts to pool all along the floor. The cave's convenient entrance creates the perfect trap. The smooth path leading down into the entrance causes water to rise from the exit and from the lake itself. Trapped beyond the lake room, neither of them could see what was happening in the lake or what was up ahead. These further portions of the cave are either unmapped or unknown to the general public. Chances are, spontaneous cave parties like these didn't take the time to fully research the cave. She didn't know if water was up ahead, or if it could flow from the other end as well, but she knew that if it did, she wouldn't last long. It was just one more thing to pray for. If rains came, even the best rescuers might not be able to even enter, much less save her. It turns out that this was the same concern rescue crews had. Before Sarah got stuck, while the group was beneath the surface, a storm had brewed and rain began to fall. Soon, she began to hear talking. Behind her, the friend in the signing room saw lights and excitedly told her rescuers were here. Sarah was on the verge of tears, but she wasn't out of hell yet. The rescuers faced the same struggles the young adults faced, but the rescue team had better gear, they were stronger, and they had experience and knowledge on their side. After using tools to dislodge the stone, Sarah's leg was free. But blood had been pooling in her head this whole time thanks to the decline in the passage. Hours had gone by since she first got stuck, and she was already tired to begin with. She was unable to crawl backwards. The adrenaline and pain had drained her. The crews attached a harness and tethered it out of the hole into the signing room. With another rescuer from the Oracle Fire Department's technical rescue team, they managed to get her back into the larger rooms. From there, she was loaded onto a stretcher and hauled up through the birthing canal and carefully down the ladder. Rescuers rigged anchors to create a pulley to lift her up the next ladder and out through the cave. After 2 more hours of rescue work, the cavers were saying that Sarah was rescued. Be prepared and respect the dangers of caves, or they will come back to humble you. This would-be caver was lucky to make it out of Pepper Sauce Cave alive, thanks to the hard work of the Oracle Fire Department and cave rescuers. What would you do if your friend was stuck below ground? Let us know in the comments section. And like the video if you'd make better preparations before exploring the dangerous and dark caves below us. And subscribe for more stories like this one.